Welcome to the 18 Demon Claw podcast, where we discuss everything Kung Fu, philosophy, healing, spirituality, magic, and much more. And you're listening to the Last Emperor, the Lord General, the one and only Sifu.
What's good, warriors? Welcome back to another 18 Demon Claw podcast. I'm Sifu G, and this is episode 6, and it's on iron palm and fist, or the so-called iron skills. All real traditional Kung Fu should have it. Myself, coming from the arts I've practiced, every Sifu has taught it in some form or another. Japanese martial arts also have hand conditioning and has its roots to Chinese martial arts. So it's been around for a very long time, probably since the dawn of combat. Boxing also used to have some type of iron hand training before gloves were used. I did read once, I can't remember who it was from, but they used to do the bag work and use pig fat around their hands, probably to soften up the skin afterwards, as it can dry out the skin. There's many methods and names for the iron palm or fist training. Every system has its own names sometimes. Iron sand palm, blood sand palm, iron palm, Buddha palm, burning palm, cotton palm. So many, but they all come under the one skill at the end of the training, in my honest opinion. With each method or training, there's usually medicine that is applied to the hands, tit da gel. They can vary. I also have iron vinegar, and not using all alcohol for the base, so it's a 2-to-1 ratio. That's a very old method, and it does harden the bones very quickly, and it shouldn't be used for the whole development of your iron skills. Some say the vinegar can make the bones brittle. Some use iron put into the jowl, so it can become carcinogenic if it's applied to skin with open wounds, so it's very dangerous. Some of the herbs in these jowls are very, very dangerous. If it gets into the bloodstream, you can get poisoning. So you must know the formulas that you are using from your teacher that's been used for a very long time, rather than, oh, I found something online, I'm going to try that. Make sure you get it from someone that's been doing the practice for real and using the medicine for real. There's other methods of applying medicine in hot water with herbs. There's internal drinking formulas and pills, and that's for damage and injuries from getting hit by the iron palm and fist, as well as doing damage to your own hands, which some people can go over the top. I'm not a big fan of the big fat looking hands that you see some of these iron skilled Sifu that are out there. Some in China, their hands look absolutely horrible, all cracked and fat. Yes, your hands will get a little thicker, and the density of the bones and the tendons in the hands need to be strengthened and worked outside of the iron skills, as in hitting bags and whatnot. Japanese use the makiwara board that they punch, and stones, just like in Kung Fu, although maybe a little different. We don't have a makiwara, so to speak, but we use hanging bags and dummies and stuff that gives you resistance. The usual iron palm that you see, which is the basic level, which is you're slapping and hitting while you're in a horse stance or a front stance, is for students to get some practice with the stance and learning how to relax and hit the medium, the bag. Some bags are filled with different material, so you get a progression, and that's what you need when you're doing iron type of palm or fist training. I've seen some teachers out there saying just hit ball bearing bags to start with. To me, that is completely insane and wrong, and you will damage your hands very quickly. Even if you're doing it softly, you're still not going to be getting any power into those strikes. So one, yes, you can just tap it, but you start with a soft material and you build up. So the time if I've used just all rags in a bag, something soft. Even rice. Rice is a good medium for the density of penetrating muscle. So a good stage that I've always taught, but when I've been taught, you start off with rice or mung beans. Rice is cheaper. Mung beans doesn't mean it's going to be better, right? Because it's the quality of the strikes that you're using, the intent, the purpose, understanding the breath, how to relax into the strike, how to be heavy on moves, and so forth. So it's not about just getting a bag full of rocks or steel ball bearings and just start smashing your hands and destroy your hands. No, a real Sifu this is a very serious skill, and it should be taken as such, because the iron palm and fist training, once you understand that, it's applied with all your martial arts. And even though that you're slapping a bag and hitting it, you are building up power if you're doing it with the real intent behind it. So the usual slapping at waist high is a basic way. Then there's hanging bags, wall bags, that you need to be able to penetrate as if you're fighting, right? Rather than stuck on just slapping, which is all downward movements, we need to be attacking as if you're fighting. So something hanging. That's why all my students, I've got them doing from the basics and then working into a harder material in the bag after I've seen them do it enough and I can see that they're putting the power and the time in. I'm always checking on their hands, and most importantly, after you've done your training, you got to not just rub the jowl on and go, yep, I'm off to dinner now. You got to massage. You got to look after the hands, guys. Right? You can't just develop and destroy your hands. I remember back in '93, up in Sydney, I became a friend with a Goju sensei out at Cronulla, and he saw me in a magazine, and I talked about Tita Jiao, and he come from the Goju system. He's very good, his knuckles were just like big ballpoint hammers, like they were massive. But he was younger than me, and his knuckles were absolutely fucked, right? He had arthritis, he's damaged his hands. So he used to come and buy the jowl off me. I actually ended up giving him the formula. I felt so sorry for him. So be careful on your training. You've got to progress. Everything's a progression, especially the way I teach, right? And my students probably listen going, yeah, nodding their head. I know you are, right? I make sure that they look after their hands. If I see that they're doing it wrong, I pull them up and get them to slow down. You know, there's nothing worse than hurting your hands and then you can't do any of your training for months. And now we get into the breaking side of it. Sure, you know, we heard, boards don't hit back. Of course they don't, but they fucking hurt too, right? So the whole idea of breaking things is a test of your technique, your breathing, your intent or willpower to go through something, have that courage, and the speed and timing of your blow. And that's what breaking is all about. And again, there's no shame in starting off with boards, bricks. When I was doing Hapkido, we used to break so many boards and bricks. I actually saw my teacher of Hapkido do some amazing board breaks, 4 boards with his fingers through it. Oh man, so much. But every grading we had to do either spinning kicks, jumping kicks, flying kicks, punches, chops, everything to break objects. So it was a big part of the Korean Hapkido back in those days. So I've always had some type of idea about what I should be trying to achieve. So Iron Palm and Fist is about achieving a skill, and it's a lifetime of study and training. I was promised never to break coconuts after I was 50, because as you get over 50, your body does start to wind down, right? And it's all about, from that age, for me, is about now cultivating and the longevity. But I would still be conditioning, right? Just no breaking, right? So the conditioning doesn't have to be so hard. You're not, you know, every day is a different day. You got more energy than others. Sometimes you might be more angry and more emotional, and you might want to release that, and that's cool. But as long as it's done perfect, you can have perfect aggression hitting the bag, but not sloppy and hurting yourself, right? So gradually build up using soft material into harder ones. And there's no 100-day Iron Palm courses that you'll ever get anything out of it, right? You'll never get, no one's ever going to have Iron Palm, right? It's a lifetime study, just like Kung Fu and the forms of perfecting technique, right? And if anyone that's done all the conditioning, and if you've had a week or 2 off, when you hit the bags again, you go, oh my God, that's a little bit harder than what it used to be, right? So as you see, if you take a week off, you actually lose a month. So it's all about doing everything in a progression and gradually build up the power, the density, the power, the breadth, everything. Start from slapping at a waist level, then a hanging bag, so you can develop your penetrating force to go through something. Because if you just got a wall bag and you can't punch through it, you may feel, oh shit, this is really good, and I bang, bang, and bang. and it sounds good, it feels good, and it is a part of my methods, but make sure there's a hanging bag that you can punch through so you get the whole range of motion, so you learn the whole technique to go through, right? So there's the slapping and hitting at waist high, which is the foundation. It helps with stances for a beginner as well, to learn how to sit in the horse stance or a front stance, whatever. But build it up to harder material, heavier striking, and you always go off how you're feeling. Once those hands are red, you don't want to go to bruising. You don't want skin off your knuckles, because once the skin's off, you can't use this Titdar medicine. And you need to use the Titdar medicine on your hands. I've had students start and they've seen me break a coconut. Again, back in the 90s. A guy's come in, he started up, he saw me break a coconut, and he decided to go home. And on his way home, he went to the shop and got himself a coconut. He was a big, strong lad, but he's never done conditioning. I didn't know he was going to do it, but I get a call later that night from the hospital. He's broken his hand, and he never come back. Right? I never told him to do it. I'd never tell my students to go out and break it unless they've trained. And there's even stages of breaking the coconut from the Do family, starting with a pillow or something that's raised to get the movement and the fear, because coconuts are hard, very hard, and they'll destroy most people. And the reason why Grandmaster Du Wei would say use a coconut is because apparently it is the same thickness or close to the human skull. So hitting and be able to crack a coconut and without damaging your hand, you've reached a pretty decent skill in your hardness, but also the timing, the ging needs to be all part of it. By just tapping and slapping a steel ball bearing bag is not going to develop your ging. Right? Another thing about iron palm, there has to be some type of qigong or heigong to get the blood and the qi to move that stagnation and micro traumas in the hands. Right? That's why there's a bit of shaking and stuff like that. The nerves are shot. I remember one of my students and I would do so much conditioning, and he come from Southern Praying Mantis when he joined my Yolkuman, and he was hard and would bash each other and would be sparring just with helmets on. And then we'd go and have a beer, and we used to laugh because we're trying to drink the beer and our arms and hands are just shaking, you know. And it's like, shit, we smashed each other. So it's important to look after your hands, correct the energy. Du Wei's got a lot of meditations that can correct the chi in the hands. Different mudras and postures gets the energy moving. Arm swings or circles, I always teach that to bring the chi to the fingertips and the blood, fresh blood into the hands, right? So it's important skill, but if you've got no fighting concepts behind it, there's no use in doing iron palm, because it's not going to serve you in combat or self-protection if you're not training to fight. So it needs to be into your fighting game. And that's why I say these UFC fighters that are always strapping their hands up, or, you know, look, kickboxing will have to do the same, but I also did a lot of iron palm and that iron fist throughout my kung fu career. Like I said, Hapkido was a lot of that as well. So to bring the forms to life with the intent to destroy your opponent, with an iron palm and fist training, should put that mentality of, okay, now I'm really getting into the meat and veggies of, I want to condition these hands to be able to get, if I hit something hard, is it going to bust, or am I going to flinch to the pain? Because as soon as you break your hand in a fight, the pain might be too much for you to even want to fight back. So breaking is a very important tool. Yes, boards and that don't hit back, but it teaches a lot about yourself. And for all my students listening, do it. Don't go straight to coconuts. You are nuts if you go straight to coconuts, right? But build up. Start with wood, bricks, or those concrete pavers that you see a lot of people using. Some use spacers, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, because it's just another dimension of confidence, right? Having the spacers, yes, once you hit the first one, the second one collapses into the next, right? A little bit of a trick there, but it helps that confidence. Okay, there's 4 paces and not one, four pavers, not one. And then you might take one of the spacers out and have 2, and see if you can do 2. All my Yokelman students for grading used to break pavers, 1 or 2, back fist, hammer fist, palms, right? So it's very important part of Kung Fu. It should be part of your daily training as a Kung Fu practitioner, because if you're only doing forms, then you're in for a rude shock, especially if it comes to reality and you're put on the spot and you don't know if you've even hit something hard enough, how you're going to react or what reaction they will get. Another thing about hitting things and breaking is, how did your hand feel afterwards? Did it recover fast enough? Right, so that also goes onto your health. The more you take away the chi by hitting things, as in, just say you've damaged and cracked your bone in your hand, now all that energy chi is now to try and heal that. And once you've got a crack or even a bone bruises take months to heal, especially a hammer fist on a coconut. If it, I've done it many a time. I've had some injuries. I think we all will. I think it's all part of it. But how far are you going to go? Right? How far do you want to go with it? You don't want to destroy your hands. You don't want big, fat, ugly looking hands. Because at the end of the day, if you're not putting that big, fat hands into combat, then why do it? Right? So to me, iron palm and fist is a very important, not the most important, but for a combat side, by doing the iron palm correctly and with the intent for the combat, it might push you into more combat sparring and training reality type, using your forms, breaking it down. Shit, this is a chop, this is a palm to this, or a skull, or and if you're not breaking down your forms and you're not hitting the hanging bags and dummies and breaking things, how do you know if you're going to be able to penetrate and hurt someone? All right, so the breaking is just as important as the conditioning. Using the correct formulas for the practice and the Heikong And at the end, massage those hands, right? Look after them. Well, I hope you like this episode on the Iron Palm Fist. I hope everyone has a lovely Christmas. Tao bless you all. And I'll see you in the new year. Peace.